right, here we go. Evening, everybody. I'm not gonna lie, I can't see too well out of this thing. It's great to be here on a spooky Friday, on a Halloween Friday. My name's Bryson Carver. In case you can't tell, I am Boba Fett. I've got the helmet on, although pretty crooked, I must say. I've got this really cool, like, Disney baseball jersey that I got back during my time at the college program. So, oh, wait, wrong way. Push the button. Hang on. Watch this, guys. Look at that. Oh, come on now. Come on. It's not bad. You gotta admit, it's not bad. So listen, happy Halloween to everybody out there. I'm gonna take this off because I need this thing called oxygen. But it's great to be here on a spooky Friday Halloween show. Tons to get into as far as the ball view, as far as what else we got? We got NFL predictions, a number of things going on in the world of sports. I'm not very happy about the fact that my Baltimore Ravens are going to end up running down my Steelers. That doesn't make me happy one bit. So that's a less than ideal trick, on tap for my beloved Pittsburgh Steelers. I will say, to be fair, if we can pull this picture up right here, as much as I love this Halloween costume, and this counts as a costume, right? I'm dressing up. It's Halloween. I miss this one dearly. I gotta say that bad boy was a blast to wear back in the day at Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. Definitely miss wearing that little tag, the vest. It was great. It really was. But we're back. Halloween. We missed Wednesday's show, so I'll give a little bit of a brief part of Wednesday's show. Bryson's best 10. We won't go down the whole list. I'll just show you the list as well as carving up the context. We can go ahead and turn the Halloween music off. There you go. That was fun, though. No, it was fun. So great to be with you. All of those who do not partake in the Halloween festivities, those who are, kind of like, curmudgeons, and maybe you're like my friend Mary Grant Jr., who doesn't give candy to children. Maybe you're that person today. Regardless, we're glad to have you with us on this Friday show. So let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens. Let's talk about the team from Baltimore, Maryland, that looks like they're about to cruise to the AFC North title. But first, we're all biased in this world. I always cringe every time I hear somebody say, I'm unbiased. Like, no, you're not. You're biased. I'm biased. We're all biased in this world. And so I'm watching that game last night as a biased Steelers fan. Now, I'm not an idiot. I did pick the Ravens to win and to cover because Miami is, regardless of what you saw on Sunday against Atlanta. Atlanta's just an enigma. They're a weird team. Miami's dead on arrival. They're done. They're screwed. They just fired their GM, Chris Greer, today. We'll talk about some of that in just a second. But the fact of the matter is that this is a Baltimore Ravens team that is, I don't give two craps that they're 3-5, and neither does Vegas. Look at every sports book, look at every betting app around in America, and any app you see. Baltimore Ravens are the favorites to win the AFC North by a long shot over my Pittsburgh Steelers. Kind of the way when the Kansas City Chiefs got rolling, and it's like, well, who cares? They're 3-3. I couldn't care less about their record in October. They're the favorites to win the Super Bowl in Vegas. The Ravens are the favorites to win the AFC North in Vegas today. Why is that? Well, part of it is because they had this guy, quarterback Lamar Jackson, who was sensational. I know that's really shocking. 4 touchdowns, no picks, completed 78% of his throws, 204 yards passing, 143 rating, which is phenomenal, and a QBR 0 to 191, which is equally phenomenal. Also consider the fact Lamar Jackson, I saw this stat today, he has more games than anybody in history with 4 passing touchdowns and 5 or fewer incompletions. He's done that 6 times. It's more than anybody in NFL history. And so we can have our questions about the Baltimore Ravens defense, of which I have plenty. That, to me, last night was the one part where I'm like, I don't know if that's totally fixed. Like, it might be better than it was when they gave up 44 to Houston or 41 to Buffalo. Right, or 37 against Kansas City when the Chiefs had yet to put up some sort of an offensive output like that. Maybe it's better than that. It's still not very good. I mean, Miami had, I think, 6 fewer yards of offense. Miami moved the football fine. They just couldn't convert on 4th down. They missed some missed field goals. I mean, it was a 14-6 ball game at the half. Like, the final score might fool you into thinking this was just a start-to-finish domination. It really wasn't. Miami is just a bad team, so they can't take advantage of any breaks that go their way. And so, if you're a Ravens fan, you've got to be thinking, okay, we went through the hard part of our schedule. We have Buffalo and Detroit and Kansas City. We had this just gauntlet of a schedule to begin the year. And now you look up today if you're a Ravens fan, or you look down rather at the schedule, and you're like, we're 3-5, and guess who our next few games are against? The Vikings, Browns, Jets, and Bengals. By the way, to start the month of December, you get the joy, the benefit of getting to play my Pittsburgh Steelers at home. That's not great. It's not great for my beloved Steelers. Especially given the fact that Pittsburgh has one of the worst defenses in football. We can show you those numbers. Do we have the Pittsburgh Steelers defensive stats? There they are. They're terrible. 22nd points per game, 30th in yards per game, last in pass yards per game, 18th in rush yards per game, 24th in yards per play, 24th in third down, 31st, second to last. And opponent points per game in the second half. They're bad. They're very bad on that side of the football. So going against Lamar Jackson, going against a Derrick Henry who I think my preseason prediction is coming true. Like, you're seeing a little bit of a decline in this player in the sense that he's still elite. He's still a productive back in this league. He is not 2,000 yards, just could take it to the house anytime he touches the ball, Derrick Henry, because he's in year 10, in his 30s, a lot of mileage on those legs. I mean, listen, to his credit, takes great care of his body in the offseason. That's not necessarily going to be sustainable over the course of a long period of time, especially when you're in year 10. But if the defense is serviceable, if down the final 9 games of Baltimore's season, they're the 14th or 15th best defense in the league, yeah, they're going to cruise the AFC North title. Now, are they a contender? Well, I did say back during the show after week 1, before Lamar went down, before we knew that the Ravens defense was actually bad, before we knew that Derrick Henry had declined to a certain degree, before there were any questions about John Harbaugh's job security long-term, before the Ravens, I guess the behest of Lamar Jackson, the way it was being put, removed the ping pong tables and the Super Smash Brothers and everything from the locker room. Before all of that, when they lost the Buffalo Bills, when they blew a double-digit second half lead, up 15 in the fourth quarter, lost. I said the next show, yep, I'm out on them. If that is in you, I cannot trust you to win consecutive playoff games in order to get to a Super Bowl. And you saw that play itself out with the Baltimore Ravens in that week 1 game against Buffalo. So they're still going to win the AFC North. That is going to be a 1 playoff team division. The Browns are awful. The Bengals' offense is good. Their defense is atrocious. And I don't think they're going to be in the picture long enough to when Joe Burrow comes back, they still have a fighter's chance. It's a 2-team division as it's been for most of the AFC North's history for the past 25 years. It's Ravens, it's Steelers. And the Ravens have the better quarterback. They have the better wide receiving core. They have the better offensive line. For my questions about Harbaugh, they have the better coach. And both defenses are bad. Ravens defense is playing better than Pittsburgh's. Ravens have an easier schedule than Pittsburgh. By the way, the Steelers, who have to play this weekend, the Colts and the Chargers and the Ravens twice and the Buffalo Bills and the Detroit Lions. I'm sorry, I wish I could say differently. I wish I could be somewhat optimistic about my Pittsburgh Steelers. I gotta be honest. I gotta keep it real. They're not good. And so you see the candy right there on that jack-o'-lantern. There's a lot of treats for the Baltimore Ravens today. A lot of tricks for my Steelers. There's no two ways about it. So I saw that game last night and I was not happy because the Baltimore Ravens are 100% back as far as being a division champion, as far as being the clear-cut best roster /team /quarterback in the AFC North. That's the reality of it. They played their C- game and cruised to victory. Game wasn't close in the second half. It was just a matter of, okay, let's finish drive. Let's stop going 3 and out. Let's stop playing with our food, i.e. the Miami Dolphins. Let's stop playing with our seafood, so to speak. They're moving the ball on us. We're kind of getting by on turnovers. Let's step up and get the job done. And they were able to do that in the second half of this game. As for Miami, here's what I'm thinking about when I'm watching this game. Because obviously I'm mostly thinking about the Ravens, the fact that you got to be kidding. After this week is over, we'll have gone from 4-1 against the Ravens, who were 1-5 to start the year, to 1 game separating the 2 teams going into week 10. Halfway through the season, only 1 game separates the 2. With the Steelers having the far harder schedule and far lesser roster and coach the rest of the year. But for Miami, who, by the way, just fired Chris Grier today. Chris Grier was their general manager. This was 2019. This was his 10th season as the GM of the team. Most GMs, if they do a poor job, and Chris Grier did, if you look at some of those drafts in Miami, they were not good. Most GMs get 2 coach hirings. He got 3. Adam Gase, Brian Flores, Mike McDaniel. Gase bombed. In the case of Brian Flores, I don't think he should have been fired. A lot of people hold similar opinions, but he did, and that I don't think that necessarily benefited the Dolphins. To Mike McDaniel's credit, he has gotten them to two postseason appearances, but you got Dolphins fans saying, hey, why isn't he getting kicked out the back door along with the GM and the quarterback for that matter? So let me, because I'm not a big Mike McDaniel fan, let me play devil's advocate. Because where does Mike McDaniel come from? What is his background among NFL coaches? Well, he comes from the Kyle Shanahan tree. He comes from a system, from a football ideology that is run the football, hit you in the mouth, dominate the line of scrimmage. That's who we want to be. Haven't the Dolphins been the finesse, are great indoors or on turf, but outdoors, kind of cold at Buffalo or at Kansas City, doesn't work as well? Finesse, shout out to Chris Broussard. I met Chris Broussard about 5 years ago. Great man, excellent sports broadcaster. He often calls the Miami Dolphins. He says when most teams want to fight, they want to break dance, which I think is a great analogy. And it's true. That's punching in the mouth is not their brand. Devil's advocate. Could I make the argument that Mike McDaniel has been saddled to a degree? I'm not saying Mike McDaniel bears no blame, because I have not defended this guy over the years. I thought his fourth down call, throwing the ball to Devon Achane, a 5'8" back against a 6'4" linebacker in Roquan Smith, weird call. Slot fade, that's an odd call in the red zone in that situation. So he's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. Could I argue, though, that he's been saddled with a GM in Chris Grier, who has bombed draft after draft after draft? A Chris Grier who, according to Brian Flores, who it was reported while he was the coach, and Flores has basically confirmed it since then, that he wanted Justin Herbert with the 5th overall pick in 2020, not Tua. Chris Grier overrode him, took Tua. Safe to say that was a missed pick. Tua, you cannot call Tua Tagovailoa a bust. Anyone who gets a second contract, even if he didn't deserve that contract, anyone who's led the league in passing, has he lived up to being the 5th overall pick? Of course not. Is he a bust? No, he's not Josh Rosen or somebody like that. That's a bust. That's not the case with Tua. But with a quarterback who, the quarterback has said it himself on a number of occasions, is just limited. There's only so much you can do with this guy. Everything with Miami's offense has to be schemed to absolute perfection. If the receiver's open, if the offensive line protection is good, if you get a solid running game, Tua's pretty good. I can make a case that Tua is Brock Purdy, except with a lesser arm, less mobile, and needs more to go his way. Like I've often said on the show many times, yeah, Brock Purdy is an average quarterback at best if things aren't perfect. And I've done segment after segment. The stats bear that out. The eye test bears that out. How many times last night, and since Mike McDaniel became the head coach of this team, is so much of this Dolphins offense screens behind the line of scrimmage? Is Tua, get the ball out of your hands quick to Jalen Waddle, because it can't move. And with the offensive line being the situation it is, we can't necessarily trust you to move around and make plays with your legs, especially given your injury history over the course of your career. We darn sure can't trust you to throw it down the field, whether Tyreek Hill's healthy or not. Obviously, Tua, after that week 2 loss, the Patriots went to the media and was like, hey, I told Tyreek, can't run that far, man. I can't throw it that far. He's getting mad at Tyreek for doing his job and running as far as he can. It's not like Tua was throwing, it's not like Tyreek was running this 60-yard route for Josh Allen to throw him. Either way, limitations at quarterback, bad drafts. Now, I'm sure Mike McDaniel has had to say, it's not like he's voiceless as it pertains to personnel decisions. But it almost feels like there's a reason, and Stephen Ross is a bad owner, but it almost feels like there's a reason that Adam Schefter reported the news the way that he did. So he reports Chris Grier's fired. Mutually agreed to part ways. That's the nice way of saying fired. And also reported Mike McDaniel will be the head coach for the rest of the season. And he added the 2 words, at least. So does that mean he's maybe coming back next year? What does that mean for Tua? Because Mike McDaniel, on a number of occasions, has criticized Tua. There was a situation where the Miami Dolphins were considering benching Tua after he had a rough, I think it was a 3-pick game against the Los Angeles Chargers, saying, we can't win a lot of games with your quarterback throwing 3 picks. And then you got Tua going to the media, and listen, I don't know if this guy just hasn't been in PR training. I don't know what's up. Every time he steps to the podium, it gets worse and worse. Here was Tua talking about the 4th down and 1 early in the game, the first half of the Dolphins. There ended up being a false start, and the Dolphins missed a field goal. Here's Tua explaining why that was the case and how the Dolphins had to adjust. And it doesn't exactly cover well for Miami.
The Ravens fans, it maybe got a little muffled with my cadence and the crowd noise. So, we kind of talked about that on the sideline after and got that corrected.
You don't need to say that, Tua. You don't need to say that. Yeah, we can see based on the Amazon broadcast, there are way more Ravens fans than Dolphins fans. This is not an opportunity. And people say, well, what? You didn't call Aaron Rodgers out when he said they had to go silent count. Aaron Rodgers used to play for the Packers. Aaron Rodgers is not going to go in the Hall of Fame as Pittsburgh Steelers legend. He's going to go in the Hall of Fame as Green Bay Packers legend. As far as I'm concerned, greatest Packers quarterback ever, with respect to Favre and to the late great Bart Starr. Tua has no ties to Baltimore. That's a completely different situation. Aaron was giving Packers fans love. Yeah, man, I used to hear that "Go Pack Go" chant for 18 years. So it was kind of weird having to go silent count because they were so loud and they travel well. That was a compliment. That wasn't the Pittsburgh fans just don't make a lot of noise. You know what I'm saying? Got drowned out by the visiting team. Tua just had to throw that. Yeah, we had a false start on a 4th and 1 because we had to go silent count because Ravens fans overtook Hard Rock Stadium last night. So he's bad at the podium, noodle arm, doesn't move well, injury history. And oh, by the way, he's one of the highest compensated quarterbacks in the league. So I don't even want to say grading on a curve, and because I don't think he's a great coach. I'm not saying he's anything like his former boss, Kyle Shanahan, who I think is brilliant. But he is being kneecapped to a certain degree with the limitations of Tua, with an atrocious GM in Chris Greer, who I think Dolphins fans have been campaigning for years for that guy to get fired. So if you're a Dolphins fan, I think your long-term future at least feels a little bit better now that he's out of the building. He's been there for 10 years, got to hire 3 coaches. They haven't won a playoff game in the decade. What are you going to do? There's been no production. Amazing. The freaking Dolphins, can see a guy who's not been successful, has been at times kind of mediocre. It's been a decade since we won anything. Well, decade plus, but a decade since he's been there. We haven't won anything. Kick him out the building. Almost as if my Pittsburgh Steelers could learn a little something about that in regard to their coach, but I digress. We won't answer those questions until later in the season or after the season, but we'll see. So just to play devil's advocate, there's an element of Mike McDaniel. Yes, I know he's not great with the media, and that matters to me. I think coaches and quarterbacks need to be good with the media. I mean, you saw Lamar Jackson last night. He's charismatic. Lamar's great with the media. Tua is awful with the media. Mike McDaniel can be kind of awkward. It's not his natural strength. And he wears wears the pants and everything. I get it. But it's not like he's working with the greatest, with the most loaded cupboard in the world, to put it that way. Bad trades, the Jalen Ramsey trade, the Bradley Chubb trade, Tyreek's now down, you paid Tua. That's Chris Greer. And you see the way Mike McDaniel's coaching, you can tell a lot about a quarterback by how the coach calls the game. And again, the 4th down call by Mike McDaniel made no sense. The slot fade to Devon Achane with a much bigger linebacker on it. That was an awful call. But he's not working with much. He's working with the front office that's in over its head. Going to have to hire a new general manager, an ownership group that is atrocious with Stephen Ross. I don't know. I just feel like we're in a situation where if Mike McDaniel were in a stable franchise, would we view him as a mid-tier coach? That's kind of where I'm at. If he was the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, would he be another Gerber John Harbaugh? I don't know, because I haven't been that high on Harbaugh in years. Now, Jim Harbaugh, I love. John Harbaugh, not as hot on. All right, I got to transition to the World Series. I'm wearing my Boba Fett baseball jersey. Got this during my time at the Disney College program, so it was a fantastic time down there. I got to say this about the World Series, and y'all going to think I'm crazy. I think the Dodgers' path to victory is pretty clear. Might it be narrow? Sure. They have to win 2 games in Toronto, and that's a hard place to go win a baseball game, much less 2 in a row. That place tonight is going to be rocking in Canada. Rogers Center, we talk about home field advantage. We say that all the time, kind of in passing. The Toronto Blue Jays have a legitimate, the home crowd legitimately gives them an advantage at the Rogers Center. So there's no question about it. The Dodgers' path to victory is this. So the Dodgers down 3-2 in the series. They got Yamamoto on the mound tonight. He has been far and away their best starter in this postseason. We had not had a complete game in the Major League Baseball postseason since 2017. Folks, this kid's done it in back-to-back starts. His last 2 starts, complete game. You would imagine Dave Roberts, that's like in a perfect world, Dave Roberts is like, yeah, it's going to be his last start of the season regardless because he's not going to be available for a Game 7. Sure, I'd love him to go the distance, especially as little as I trust my bullpen. Speaking of the bullpen, let's say Yamamoto gives you 7 2/3, 8 innings, 8 good innings, 1 run, 2 earned runs. That should be good enough for the Dodgers to win, right? Yeah, Shohei Ohtani, who's been fine in the series outside of one game, Game 3, he was sensational. Freddie Freeman, who's been clutch but kind of average. Mookie, who has been awful in the series, was very self-critical after Game 5. Teoscar Hernandez, Will Smith, they've got the firepower to score more than 2 runs to the Los Angeles Dodgers. If you can get that out of Yamamoto, 7 2/3, 8 innings, be able to close the door in the ninth, and we go to a Game 7. Dave Roberts doesn't have to use the bullpen at all. You have to use him. You imagine Tyler Glasnow will be the starter. You would have Shohei Ohtani available. See, Shohei pitched on Tuesday, so he'd be available on Saturday. Blake Snell. Remember John Lester? John Lester in the 2016 World Series, when the Cubs came back from 3-1 to beat the Cleveland, at the time, Indians. John Lester started in Game 5. Stepped up and gave them, 3 innings in Game 7? He was huge. He was one of the big players in the Cubs winning that World Series, winning that Game 7. You're telling me Blake Snell couldn't give you 1 or 2 innings? So you look at a situation for the Dodgers where we can use Glasnow, Ohtani, and potentially Snell. We might even feel comfortable giving Clayton Kershaw an inning, maybe. It's the last game of his career. You would have to go to your bullpen. That was 22nd in baseball in ERA. That was one of the worst bullpens in all of baseball, all season long. That was kind of your Achilles heel. That what has been your Achilles heel in the World Series, particularly in Game 4, when Shohei Ohtani isn't Superman like he was in Game 4 against the Brewers. It's pretty good. Bullpen comes in, it's over. Blue Jays have a huge inning, go on to win Game 4. Tie the series, go on to win Game 5, 2 leadoff homers to begin. And so, listen, Toronto has been, as much as we talk about the firepower of the Dodgers lineup, and it's legit. I mean, we know the names. The Blue Jays have been the better offense in the postseason. I mean, they came into this World Series having scored 25 more runs than the Dodgers. And they haven't faced the Dodgers bullpen yet. So that's a major question. I by the way, credit where it is due. The kid, Yasavage, that started Game 5 for the Blue Jays, decent Game 1, awesome in Game 5. Had his parents in the stands. It was a great moment with them. He was sensational. But I think you're looking at a pretty clear scenario for the Dodgers. Yamamoto's awesome tonight. If it's 5 innings, 6 innings, the Dodgers probably go home tonight. Blue Jays are probably champions in 6 hours. But if he is sensational, gets any run support whatsoever, which we know the Dodgers are fully capable of, my bold prediction tonight, I think Mookie Betts is going to get out of a slump. I really, really do. I think Mookie Betts is going to be put in a position to where they're scared of Ohtani. Maybe they intentionally walk Ohtani a couple times because they don't want the Dodgers offense to get rolling with a leadoff double or, God forbid, a home run. So they'll say, hey, 50 for the Dodgers, 3-time champion for the Dodgers, Mookie Betts. He's been struggling. Let's put the bat in his hands. He says, okay. I have been familiar with this ballpark during my time with the Boston Red Sox. I've been in the World Series many times in my career. Let's get the job done. Let me step up, put Freddie Freeman in a good position, and then just keep the ball rolling from there. So I've got the Los Angeles Dodgers winning tonight. I'm going to say in a close game, I'm going to say 5-2. I think Yamamoto gives them 8 2-run innings. 8 strikeouts, something like that. Gets a run support from the Dodgers offense. We go to a Game 7 tomorrow. As we all know, the great Bill Russell said it best.
The best 2 words in sports. Game 7.
Indeed. Not just the best 2 words in sports, but also anything can happen in a Game 7. And the Dodgers legitimately could play that game without really ever having to use their bullpen. Glasnow, Ohtani, Snell, and I'm not so sure we wouldn't see a Clayton Kershaw appearance in a Game 7. It's the last game of the year. We're throwing all the chips in the middle of the table. The only guy who's not 100% not available, Yamamoto. That's where we're going to use him up tonight. Last start of the season. go with everybody else in game 7. So I think the Dodgers are in good position. I really do. And so we'll see how it plays out. Again, I believe in pick integrity. I picked the Dodgers in 6 before the series started. Obviously, that's off the table. I picked the Dodgers to win the World Series, to go back-to-back before the season started. So I feel an obligation to stick with this team, to stick with L.A. I think the MVP, it's a toss-up between Savage and Vlad Guerrero. I'd probably get to give it to Guerrero because he's been kind of the rally starter for this Blue Jays team. I mean, the leadoff homer in Game 5 was big in some of those big rallies over the course of this series. So I give it to Vladdy. If that continues, into tonight or into tomorrow and the Blue Jays win the World Series. For the Dodgers, Ohtani's historic Game 3, Freddie Freeman with the walk-off in Game 3, those feel like the only two real, Yamamoto, I guess you could put in that discussion if he has another awesome start tonight. Given what he did in Game 2, I think it's kind of similar to, remember Steven Strasburg with the Nationals when he had a big-time Game 2 in Houston, a Game 6 to save Washington's season, didn't even pitch in Game 7, and got World Series MVP. We could see a similar situation like that with Yamamoto. I hope Teoscar Hernandez against his former team has a big-time moment, because he was my pre-series prediction in terms of who would win World Series MVP. But I think the Dodgers win tonight. Yamamoto goes 8 strong, and they win Game 7 tomorrow in Toronto. I'm also partially saying that because, as a Red Sox fan, I don't want to see the Blue Jays win a World Series. I don't see that. All right, be back in just 1 minute. Listen, we missed Wednesday's show, but that does not mean we're going to miss carving up the context. And I've got a good one. Got a good one on tap for this Halloween episode of Carving Up Live. Also give a quick rundown, not the full segment, but a quick rundown. Bryson Best 10, the Volview, huge game for Tennessee tomorrow night against the Oklahoma Sooners in Neyland Stadium. And of course, predictions for all of Week 9 action in the National Football League. We'll be back in just 1 minute on Carving Up Live. Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Appreciate everybody stopping by on this Halloween. We got some graphics here. I will say, I didn't make any of these. Shout out to StreamYard, the incredible partners of StreamYard who we carry the show out live every week via YouTube and X and Facebook. We're not live on Instagram tonight, but normally live on Instagram. So yeah, right there, you got the dancing skeletons. That's fun. So shout out to everybody out there celebrating Halloween, trick-or-treating, the whole bit. Listen, I'm the type of guy, I tend to take Halloween in more of a low-key sense. Like you see, like I'm not wearing a full-on costume, but I am wearing a jersey, a Boba Fett jersey, supporting the Star Wars universe. I am still, I swear to God, if I had the opportunity to wear this one, back in the day at my time, Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, believe me, I would do it. Listen, I will say the pants weren't terribly comfortable. The blue vest was awesome. I love the blue vest, and of course the Galaxy's Edge name tag. It was a great time. It was a great time. Hope to be back in Batu soon to see some of my good friends down there. But again, I tend to take Halloween very casually, like eat candy, watch a movie, and in the case of tonight, watch a movie and watch Game 6 of the World Series. It's going to be a fun night, no question about it. It's going to be a fun sports weekend. Great college football tomorrow. Fantastic NFL games on Sunday. It's great. It's the last show in October, which is unfortunate because October is the best month on the sports calendar for a number of reasons. But November ain't too shabby either. Last full month of the college football regular season. I can't even believe we're to that point, which is shocking. I think the playoff rankings come out on Tuesday or something. So we'll have some playoff rankings to react to on Wednesday's show. So that'll be fun. Got Thanksgiving football later in the month. NBA starting to crack, to rack up just a little bit or crank up, I guess, the word I was looking for, just a little bit. Disappointed with my Warriors last night against the Bucks. I did not like that, see that whatsoever. But let's get back to business. So I missed Wednesday's show. That does not mean, folks, that I'm going to miss arguably my favorite segment. That and If I Were a Bettin Man, and that will come obviously later in the show. But my favorite segment that I do every week, arguably, at least on a consistent basis, each and every week, even aside from the football season, is called Carving Up the Context. And folks, it's an appropriate one. Not necessarily I tried to find like a Halloween theme. Wasn't able to do it. But it certainly applies to one of the biggest games in sports this weekend. So as the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, primetime Deion Sanders says, "Give me my theme music." On this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, I've talked about this for years, but I've never just done a full-on sort of autopsy, if you will, of this topic. And it's segments like this is what Carving Up the Context was designed for. Talking about the Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen rivalry. For those that are listening via the podcast, those are air quotes that I just showed on camera. So I want to say this, and I referred to it on Monday. I have about as much respect for Jim Nantz as any broadcaster in the space of all time. I think Jim Nantz is a pro's pro. I think he is A+ at golf. He was A+ at basketball when he did March Madness back in the day, and he's A+ at football. He is the voice, the timing, the rhythm, the pace, rapport with other broadcasters, with color analysts, regardless of the sport. Just and class act, everything you hear about him. He's a great guy. Jim Nantz is the best. But he alluded to it during Nantz and Romo's most recent game on Sunday between the Cowboys and Broncos. And he went deeper on it, and I think was more, with respect to the great Jim Nantz, and I love Jim Nantz, was even more flagrantly wrong based on something he said on radio, talking about the Mahomes-Allen, again, air quotes, rivalry. Here's his exact quote. "They need each other. If you look at great rivalries in sport, Magic needed Bird, Jack and Arnie needed one another, Brady needed Manning, and Peyton needed Tom. It goes with the territory, and they bring out the best in one another." End quote. Here's the problem. Let's talk about that, and then let's go into the specifics as to why this is not a rivalry, because it's not. I think Patrick Mahomes does have a rival, actually, but it's not Josh. They need each other. That's essentially what Nantz is saying. Name one iconic Josh Allen moment that did not involve the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. Because I can argue the most iconic moment of Josh Allen's career came in probably the most devastating loss of his career. 2021, it's one of the greatest games we've ever seen. The Mahomes-Allen 2021 divisional round, they went back and forth. Both quarterbacks were, just perfect in that game. The 13 seconds, Mahomes ties the game, gets the ball first in overtime. Overtime rules got changed because of that game. It was like, not just was it iconic, it was incredibly influential in future rule changes in the NFL. And so when you consider the fact, ladies and gentlemen, that Josh Allen does not have an iconic, name it. Regular season moment, postseason moment. I can argue the biggest play of Josh Allen's regular season career. Last year, 4th and short, runs it in for a touchdown from almost 30 yards out to beat Kansas City, hand them the first loss of the season. And really helped Josh Allen win MVP because that was the only time that the Chiefs lost until the Super Bowl in a game that mattered. Denver beat them, but the Chiefs had already clinched their playoff spot. Patrick Mahomes, on the other hand, has had many iconic moments against the Bills. The 13 seconds, the game-winning drive in, I think it was last year's AFC Championship game. But he's had a number of iconic moments beyond that. 24-0 to the Texans, right? You think about the comeback, down double digits to the Niners coming back and winning. The game-winning drive to beat the Niners a year ago. We've seen Patrick Mahomes do a number of iconic moments with this guy. None of Josh Allen's iconic moments have come against anybody other than the Kansas City Chiefs. I say that to say this. Josh does need Mahomes. Mahomes does not need Josh in order to be a legend or have a legendary moments. So that's number one. Number two, I am a staunch believer that in a rivalry, for it to be a rivalry, for it to be an evenly set playing field, so to speak, there's got to be a push and pull. There's got to be a back and forth, push-pull, tug of war, so to speak. One's got to get the other at least one time. And that simply, folks, has not been the case when Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen square off. We can show you game by game by game by game in the postseason. I know Josh has not lost to Mahomes in the regular season since 2020, and they play this weekend. Maybe that'll change. But in the postseason, Mahomes never lost. So let's show 2020 AFC title game. Mahomes beat him in touchdowns, had no turnovers compared to Josh's one. Josh had more yards, but Mahomes had the better completion percentage, rating, QBR, and he won the game. The iconic game in which Allen and Mahomes were flawless back in the 2021 divisional round. Tied in touchdowns with 4. Again, both quarterbacks were phenomenal, but Mahomes still beat Josh in yards, completion percentage, QBR, and of course, he won the game. You can't blame that loss on Josh. The Bills scored 36 points. That was not on him. So, can't put heat on him, but Mahomes, worst case scenario, played Allen to a draw. In 2023 divisional round game, Allen had more touchdowns and yards, but Mahomes had the better completion percentage, rating, QBR, and he won the game. And by the way, Allen got the ball late with a chance to go win the game, tie or win the game, down 3, came up short. And then last year's AFC Championship game, Mahomes had 1 turnover, Josh had none, but Patrick still beat him in touchdowns, yards, completion percentage, passer rating, QBR, and he won the game. And in that game as well, Josh Allen got the ball in his hands, down 3, chance to go tie or win the game, and got 1 first down. In totality, Josh versus Patrick in the playoffs, it's not remotely close. Mahomes has 1 more touchdown. They both have 1 turnover. In that regard, they are close. Josh hasn't beaten yards. Mahomes has him beat by almost 10 points in terms of completion percentage. Has him beat by 22 points in terms of passer rating. Has him also beat by 22 points in QBR. And he's 4-0. Of course, Josh Allen, by definition, would be 0-4. Did you know, ladies and gentlemen, Patrick Mahomes is the only quarterback in the history of the National Football League postseason. I said the history of the National Football League postseason to be 4-0 against another quarterback. That's never happened before. Ever. We've hit 3-0s. I think if I'm not mistaken, I feel like Aikman might have been 3-0 against Favre or something. I think Aikman might have been 3-0 against Favre. We've had Hall of Fame quarterbacks be 0-3 against other Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Never 0-4, except in this case. And I'm not saying that to say, it's all Josh's fault. I am saying Josh got the ball back last 2 games. Down 3, chance to go tie or take the lead with plenty of time on the clock. Came up empty both times. Patrick Mahomes, on the other hand, down 3 with, 13 seconds left to Buffalo. 2 completions. Butker, to his credit, came up clutch, hit the tying field goal, and that was enough because Mahomes, with the old overtime rules, got the ball, went down, scored, ball game. Mahomes-Allen is a rivalry, just like Steph Curry versus James Harden is a rivalry. Ironically, Harden is also 0-4 against Steph in the postseason. Now, to be fair, Josh Allen is not close to the postseason choke artist that James Harden is. Harden is almost unparalleled. People compare Lamar Jackson, Aaron Judge. They've had their moments. Aaron Judge was actually quite good this postseason. Lamar Jackson's had great games against the Steelers and the Texans. He's had moments. James Harden plays, he turns into Houdini. He's a disappearing act in big games 5, 6, 7s. That's his resume. That's his reputation. But for years, you could, if you did a poll around 2016, 17, 18, or heck, I'd argue even 2019, around that time, maybe not 2016, 17, 18, 19. Who's the better player, Steph Curry or James Harden? Harden would get votes. He would, I'll tell you, he averages 35 a game. He's one of the greatest offensive forces we've seen in the history of basketball. Yeah, but when they match up in the postseason, Steph is 10 times better than him. Steph wins game 7s on the road. Steph wins game 6s on the road with no Kevin Durant. James Harden, on the other hand, in 2015, broke the postseason record for turnovers. James Harden in 2016, with no Steph Curry in that series, for the majority of the series, got gentleman swept. And then in 2018, James Harden was the leader of a team that missed 27 straight threes. And then in 2019, game 6, no Kevin Durant. Steph Curry scored 0 in the first half. Steph then goes for 33 in the second half. We all know the story. It's not a rivalry. There's no push and pull. Steph, LeBron, that's a rivalry. Steph got him in 15. Bron got him in 16. Steph got him in 17 and 18. Bron got him in 23. There's a push and pull. There's a tug of war. There's a winner. In the case of the first 4 matchups, they were in the finals. So whoever wins literally wins the championship. But there was okay, these are the 2 guys that have defined the sport. These are the 2 kind of torchbearers for that current generation of basketball. How will we remember this era of quarterback play? It's too early to tell. It's kind of like, again, I say many times this show, I'm a diehard presidential. I cannot call myself a historian. I'm not qualified to take that title, but I consume presidential history on the daily. I love it since I was a little kid. And it's always kind of like a known thing among historians. Like, you never rank the current president because it's too early to tell. You don't know how their term is going to play out, what's going to happen, things that are in their control, out of their control. And it's hard to even judge modern presidents like an Obama, a Bush, a Biden. Like, it's honestly, you can only really kind of judge Clinton back because there's a lot that happens in the post-mortem of their presidencies. I say that to say it's too early to tell with how this generation of quarterbacks will be remembered. But I would venture to guess 15 years from now, when some of these guys are retired or at the very end of their careers, that we'll look back and say, this was Patrick's era, just like it was Brady's era, just like it was Montana's era. Like certain quarterbacks, it was their era. This was Patrick's era. He got, 4 or 5, who knows how many Super Bowls, multiple MVPs. And number 2, there were guys more talented than the next guy. But he won almost as much as Patrick. He got Patrick in the postseason, and there was a push and pull tug of war. These were the 2 teams of the 2020s. Jalen Hurts. If Patrick Mahomes has a rival, it's him. It is not Josh Allen. Jalen Hurts. Some argued, I disagree. Some argued outplayed Mahomes in that Super Bowl 57. Mahomes, I counter by saying, on a bad ankle with a receiving core that wasn't that good, played literally a flawless second half. They scored every single time they touched the ball, including the last drive where they were burning the clock to settle for the game-winning field goal. Outside of that, scored a touchdown every drive against the number 1 defense in the league. Did the Kansas City Chiefs in the 2022 Super Bowl. And then last year, vastly outplayed Mahomes. Jalen Hurts was the best player on the field. It was either Jalen Hurts or Jalen Carter. Hurts was awesome in that Super Bowl. By the way, Jalen has beaten Mahomes 3 straight times, including 2 of which in Arrowhead, the other of which in the biggest game in all sports. Josh Allen's never had a moment like that. Yeah, sure, he's won 4 straight times in the regular season. That's hang the banner in Buffalo. You got plenty of room for it. But in this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, with all due respect to the great Jim Nantz, and with all due respect to anybody that has dubbed this a rivalry. Heck, I'm guilty as charged. Back when, after that 2021 playoff game, 42-36 was the finals, an all-time quarterback duel. I came on the next day in the show 3.5 years ago. I'm like, this is the next Brady Manning. They're going to go back and forth. And 3 years later, 4 for Patrick, 0 for Josh. And Mahomes has outplayed him every single game. If you want to say Mahomes didn't outplay Josh in 2021, let's compromise and call it a draw. They were both sensational. But still, Josh will have never outplayed Patrick, ever in the postseason. And twice got the ball in his hands with a chance to go tie or win the game. Came up empty twice. Mahomes has been the immensely better playoff quarterback. He's been the more clutch playoff quarterback. Josh Allen, by the way, and I'm saying this, I think Josh is awesome. I think he's the second best quarterback in the league to Mahomes. I read this today. Did you know Josh Allen's never won a road playoff game in his career? Patrick Mahomes has. In Josh's house in 2023. First road playoff game Mahomes ever participated in. With the Chiefs receiving core that led the league in drops. Went to Josh's house and won. So this idea that this is Brady Manning, there was a tug of war. There was a push and pull from Brady Manning. Heck, Manning was 3-1 in AFC title games against Brady. Brady got Peyton, like it was a back and forth. Manning won 5 MVPs. Brady won all the Super Bowls and some MVPs. And then Peyton got 2 Super Bowls. There was a back and forth. Josh Allen has 1 MVP. Mahomes has 2 MVPs, 3 Super Bowls, 3 Super Bowl MVPs, 2 additional Super Bowl appearances. It's not remotely close. If Patrick has a rival, it ain't Josh. It ain't Lamar. At this point, I don't think you can say it's Burrow because I know Burrow got Patrick back in 2021. Burrow, God bless him, is never healthy. It's the guy in the other conference. It's Jalen Hurts. Beating him 3 straight times. Beating him in a Super Bowl. The Super Bowl that he lost, he was phenomenal in. There's a back and forth. There's a push and pull. It's Steph versus LeBron. Steph got Bryson. And by the way, in all of those series except for 2023 when I think Steph was better than LeBron, Braun outplayed Steph in all of them. In all of the finals they played in, Braun was the better player. But Steph had the better team. Steph was still great outside of 2016. Was still great in those series. 2023, I think he absolutely was better than LeBron at that point in time. LeBron was 39 at that point, but still, push and pull, tug of war. Steph's 3-2 against LeBron. He's 4-0 against Harden. It's not, guys, like, it's not a rivalry. And the reason it's similar, there was a point in time when people thought Harden was better than Steph, which was absurd. Just like people thinking Josh, as exceptional a talent as he is, there's never been a day in his life he's been better than Patrick Mahomes. Ever. And we've seen it in the postseason year after year after year. Can you get him once? If we have a postseason game and Josh goes to Arrowhead and finally gets over the top, bam, we got a rivalry. Now there's some resistance in the tug of war. Now there's okay, Patrick has met his match to a degree. He lost to Brady twice, but Brady's out of the league. He's lost to Burrow. He's lost to Hurts. And okay, now he's lost to Josh. Now there's a discussion. Hasn't happened yet. No quarterback's ever been 0-4 against another in the postseason, except for Allen against Mahomes. So in this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, it's not a rivalry. It can be entertaining without being a rivalry. Warriors-Rockets was very entertaining. I mean, that 2018 series that went 7, the 2019 series, KD went down. Oh my God, the Rockets are going to win. No, Steph comes to the rescue and Clay hits big shot. They were a fun watch. But just because something is entertaining to watch, not necessarily make it great. That's where we're at on this. Yeah, Mahomes Josh is definitively not a rivalry. And now if Josh gets Patrick, it will be. But until then, it is not. All right, before we go to the Vol View, do we have, okay, here it is. So again, Wednesday's show. Couldn't miss doing Bryson's Best 10. We're not going to do the whole segment. We're just going to show the list. So go and put up the graphic up. This is what I've got for Bryson's Best 10 for week 9. So the top 3 remain exactly the same. I've got Kansas City 1, Detroit 2, Indianapolis 3. Listen, the only reason I didn't put Indianapolis over Detroit is Detroit has obviously a more recent track record of winning and of success. And number 2, Indianapolis' schedule has not been that difficult. It hasn't. It's been some games against the Titans and against the Dolphins and some bad teams in there. Now moving forward, Indianapolis, if I can pull up their schedule here, they've got at Pittsburgh. It's not that hard of a game, but they'll play the Chiefs, and they'll play a great Texans defense twice, and they'll play, San Francisco if they're more healthy. Like there'll be some Seattle on the road in Seattle. That's the only reason I didn't move the Colts up. I'm just put me back on screen for a second before we go back to it. I'm a big believer in and I despise power rankings for this reason. That's why I don't call it power rankings in this show. Power rankings is just another word for let's just rank the teams based off record. Well, that's boring. That's why we got the standings. If you want to see power rankings, just look at the standings. Look at the playoff seeding. So fun. Who's actually the best team? Kansas City has won 5 of 6. They have yet to score under 28 points since the return of Xavier Worthy, and now they got Rashee Rice back, and Kansas City played their C-plus game against Washington and won by 3 touchdowns. Detroit's number 2. Listen, Detroit's come off a bye. We'll see how they perform against the Vikings at home this week in a big NFC North matchup, but that Lions offense is rolling. They just locked up Aiden Hutchinson long-term on a contract, which I loved. So yeah, top 3 remains the same. I've got the Eagles moving up a spot. I was very, very impressed with how Philadelphia finally was able to generate a consistent run game. Saquon, hey, welcome back, Saquon. Looks like the 2024 version of yourself, breaking these 60-plus yard runs. O-line controlled the line of scrimmage against a great Giants D-line, and Jalen Hurts was Jalen Hurts. He didn't turn the football over. He was efficient. I mean, this year, Jalen, can we put up Jalen's numbers on the year? He's got a 20-2 total touchdown to turnover ratio. That's incredible. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to do an MVP ladder next week. It's a segment I do every other week. Jalen's going to be high up in the list. Let me put it that way. If he, continues to perform the way he's been performing, the Eagles aren't a bye, so he's got nothing to prove positively or negatively this week. Rams moved down a spot. It's not because what the Rams didn't do. It's because what Philly did do. Patriots up a spot. The only concern I have about New England, really, I don't love their O-line now, to be fair. What O-line can't protect against Myles Garrett? 5 sacks is a bit extreme, but I don't. It's better than it was last year, but the Patriots still have some work to do on that O-line. But Drake May has been absolutely positively sensational, is more than deserving of being in the MVP discussion. Packers up 3 spots. Again, this is why it is a rankings list of who I believe the best teams in the league are. I'm not ranking them based on, well, who has the best record? Let's rank them from there. That takes no effort. That's lazy. The Packers have played 3 complete games this season. First 2 games of the year against Detroit and Washington, and on Sunday against the Steelers. But I still need to see more, and I still need to see more consistency from their defense and from everybody outside of Micah Parsons, who's been phenomenal in Green Bay. I know that's a shocker to Jerry Jones, but Packers at 7, Broncos stay at 8. To me, what the game on Sunday was more about Dallas's defensive deficiencies. I will say I was impressed by the fact that Denver held Dallas's starters. Dallas ended up getting to 24, but that was Joe Milton garbage time. They were able to hold Dallas to 17 points. They turned Dak over twice. That was impressive. Bucs moved down 3 spots. I wasn't particularly impressed with their game against New Orleans. I know they won by 20. 7 of those came on a pick 6 by a lineman against Spencer Rattler. Baker didn't play all that well. He's kind of dropping a little bit in the MVP discussion. And Seattle down a spot. I was not impressed in the slightest with Seattle's game against Houston. Houston's offensive incompetence is the only reason they didn't win that game. So Bryson, best 10. Same 10 teams as last week. There's no new teams in for week 9. Top 3 stays the same. Number 8 stays the same. And other than that, there's some teams moving up, some teams moving down. So that's what we got. Okay. So the Vol View is a segment we do every Friday. And I love it. It is, I always say it was my incredible mother's idea. It was her idea for the Vol View. Shout out to you, Mom. And essentially, it is my one niche segment where I talk all Tennessee football during the segment. Well, this is not just relevant for carving it up. It's relevant for college football because it's one of the biggest games in college football this weekend. And it's a great slate of games. You got Cincinnati versus Utah. You got Vanderbilt versus Texas. You got even games that don't necessarily have postseason ramifications for one team. Georgia, Florida has always been a great rivalry. So has Ohio State, Penn State. Like, there's some exciting games this weekend. For Tennessee and for Oklahoma, for both teams. Just keep it a buck. This is an elimination game. The loser, forget being done for the SEC title game. They're done in general for the college football playoff. This is an elimination game. So let's get rolling. A very exciting episode of the Vol View starts right now.
In Tennessee.
Oh, is it ever? Is it ever football time in Tennessee? So let's just get right to it. The Tennessee Volunteers are 6-2. The Oklahoma Sooners are 6-2. The fact of the matter is this for both teams. If you win this game and you win out, you're in the playoff. I've said this ever since Tennessee lost to Alabama 2 weeks ago. When folks were like, oh man, I think Tennessee might be dead. I said, if they win out, they are not only just not dead, they're in. I've said this over and over. A 10-2 team out of the SEC is not going to miss the college football playoff. Not a 12-team setting. That's not going to happen. As weak as the ACC is, the lack of depth that the Big 12 has, Big 12 probably gets in 2, I think. It depends on what happens with Cincinnati and Utah. BYU, it feels like they're going to end up winning the conference. We'll see. ACC's getting 1 team. It's going to be Georgia Tech or it's going to be Miami. Big 12 probably gets 2. Big 10 gets Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon. Like that's it. Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon. Like that's all it gets in. I doubt Michigan wins out and puts themselves in position to get in. Here's the fun part about this matchup. Tennessee has the number 2 scoring offense in the country. Oklahoma has the number 5 scoring defense in the country. So you got a strength on strength type of battle. The Vols, it feels like effortlessly. Now, again, Kentucky's awful. But it's still on the road in Lexington, coming off of a tough road loss to Bama. It's kind of a get-right game. Effortlessly put up 56 in your head. Joey Aguilar goes for nearly 400 yards. Was utterly sensational. Chris Brazzell's great. Chris Brazzell, according to the numbers, the best deep ball wide receiver in all of college football. Joey Aguilar, completing nearly 60% of his passes on deep throws. For context, Joe Milton completed, I think, like 28% of his passes. Nico Iamaleava, 31%. Joey Aguilar, nearly 60%. So that is what's made this Tennessee offense go back to the level that it was at back in 2022 with Hendon Hooker, because the deep ball's back, because you have, it's not like they didn't have deep ball threats last year, but they have a guy that can get them the ball this year in those type of situations. Chris Brazzell, Braylon Staley, and Mike Matthews. Tennessee doesn't have a ton of depth at that position, which concerns me a little bit. But as far as the production they get from the top three guys, off the charts. Like they've all consistently been in the top 10 in terms of receiving yards in the SEC. For Oklahoma, I think there's a very good chance we end up looking back on the season for the Sooners as a real missed opportunity, in the sense of, God, we were rolling going into the Red River rivalry game against a Texas team that had not found its way. Now Texas looking a little bit better offensively. They weren't at this time. And at the last second, the medical staff and the head coach, Brent Venables, decides we're going to let John Metier play 17 days after surgery on his broken hand on his throwing thumb. Broken bone in his throwing thumb. Since then, he has not looked the same. He's looked, I guess you could say, progressively better. He threw 3 picks against Texas, had a touchdown passing against South Carolina. I think had 2 against Ole Miss. So, like, you can maybe say, there's been a little bit of a jump in him. And by the way, he gets the blessing of going against one of the worst defenses in the Southeastern Conference, the Tennessee Vols. Because as impressive as the Vols offense was, the defense was awful. Scored a touchdown and still gave up 34 points to the woebegone Kentucky Wildcats. But here's a stat that'll make every Tennessee fan in the state, outside of it, very, very happy and feel very, very reassured going into this game. The Tennessee Volunteers, if you take out games against Georgia, one of the premier college football programs in all the country, take out Georgia, the Vols are on a 25-game winning streak at Neyland Stadium. And Neyland Stadium is going to have a little special spooky flair this weekend. Dark Neyland, dark mode, spooky Rocky Top. Vols going to be coming out in those black uniforms, black helmets, jerseys, pants, like the whole bit. I'm going to be at Neyland Stadium tomorrow. If I don't have a voice on Monday's show, that's why. Because the place, quite simply, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be absolutely, positively rocking on Saturday night. And so for as little confidence as I have in Tennessee's defense, pass rush is good. Joshua Joseph has been excellent. Guys like Dominic Bailey have been productive. Outside of that, Secondary's been beat up. Ricky Gibson III's been out. Jermon McCoy's been out. It's going to be a high-scoring affair. But John Metier, and I was very high on this kid before he played his first game at Oklahoma because I loved him at Washington State, has not looked the same since the thumb injury. And Oklahoma's defense, for being the 5th scoring defense in the country, they can get got. Ole Miss showed you that last week. And Ole Miss offense, it's good. It ain't Tennessee's offense, especially Tennessee's offense. The bright lights of Neyland Stadium. Day after Halloween, November 1st, it's basically going to be Halloween. It's just an extension of All Hallows Eve at Neyland Stadium. So, I got the Vols. -2.5, high-scoring affair, 34-27 over the Oklahoma Sooners. Vols win. They get to 7-2, and they put themselves in position. They go into a bye week after this week. And then from there, I think it's New Mexico State, if I'm not mistaken, at Florida. Haven't won in Florida since 2003. That scares me a little bit. And then a home game against those tough-talking Vanderbilt Commodores. Vols win this game tomorrow night, run the table, you're into the college football playoff. It's that simple. So for this week's edition of the Vol View, it is going to be a high-scoring game. It is going to be a nerve-wracking game for all Tennessee fans involved. I would love nothing more than to see a blowout. That'd be great. But Oklahoma's well coached. Oklahoma's talents on the opposite side of the ball. John Metier still capable of making plays with his legs if his thumb isn't fully healthy. But in the end, Joey Bleepin Aguilar and those receivers. And by the way, that running game, Deshaun Bishop, Peyton Lewis, Star Thomas, the offensive line, totally controlling the line of scrimmage this season, will be in position to win this game, get to 7-2, and if you're on the table, you're into the college football playoffs. So that is it for this week's edition of the Vol View. I listen, I am nervous, but also extremely exciting. I think it is going to be, I think it is going to be a very good game. I really do. I respect Oklahoma's defense. I don't think it's going to be just a up and down the field for Tennessee's offense, but I think they may have, again, I know Kentucky's bad, but I think they may have found something in the sense of just give Joey the requisite protection, and he's just going to throw it all over the yard. D-ball's worked all season, more so than any quarterback in recent memory at Tennessee, and the running games have been sensational. And John Mateer has not looked the same since that thumb injury. Yeah, he just hasn't. I think I said at the time, it was a massive mistake to let him play the Red River rivalry game. Even if you lost, who cares? You got one loss. You're fine. You can still lose another game and get in the college football playoff. But no, there's a big mistake by Brent Venables and by John Mateer and by the medical staff, because he was in no shape to play that game, as we saw against Texas, and it's kind of gone downhill for Oklahoma's offense from there. All right, getting into Week 9 NFL predictions. 1-0 to start the week. Not just in general, straight up, but against the spread. 1-0, took the Ravens to win, took the Ravens to cover. But if we can pull up the graphic, here it is, how I've done an okay Week 8. 8-5, 6-7, 6-7 against the spread. Overall, 78, 42-1. Pretty good. Against the spread, I'm 5 games under 500. I'm hoping to change that this weekend. Ups to the week, man, I win. It's been weird. And maybe this is a sign of good things to come, because I started 0-2 and upset of the week, went on a 4-game winning streak, and then lost the last 2. So I guess by that metric, start 0-2, go 4-0, go 0-2 again. I mean, that can only mean we're about to go on a 4-game winning streak, right? Bryson's Bleak Bet. That's the only segment that I expect to be around 500. I'm 4-4 in that. And if I were a bet man, the segment that I love so dearly, I'm 4 games under 500. If I even go undefeated, I still cannot recover quite enough to get over that 500 mark. But I'm telling you, we're midway through the season. What do they call it? What did LeBron call it during the playoffs when he would like turn off all social media? He wouldn't use Twitter, Instagram, none of it, zero dark 30. And just like, I am tunnel vision. I am locked into the playoffs. Well, that's how I am with my picks moving forward. Week 9, we're halfway through the regular season. So I'm ready to roll from here. So let's get the background music going and let's all right. We will start, because I just want to get it over with. I'm not going to lie to you. The Indianapolis Colts and my beloved Pittsburgh Steelers from Pittsburgh, PA. The Colts on the road at Acrisure Stadium are a 3.5-point favorite, as well they should be. The Colts offense is the leaders this century, 21st century, in points per drive. They are ahead of the 07 Patriots and the 18 Chiefs. Pretty good, right? No one expects Daniel Jones to be 07 Brady or 18 Mahomes. No one's expecting Jonathan Taylor to be, well, Jonathan Taylor actually has been better than any of the running backs for those two teams, but still, no one's expecting Alec Pierce or any of these guys to be anything close to Randy Moss and Tyreek Hill. No one's expecting Tyler Warren to be Kelsey. But alas, here we are. And they're facing a Steelers defense that has been atrocious, as we pointed out all season long. 22nd points per game, 30th in yards per game, last in pass yards per game, 18th in opponent rush yards per game, 24th in opponent yard per play, 24th in opponent third down percentage, and 31st, second to last, in opponent points per game in the second half. In other words, it has been bad. Oh, look at that nice graphic. That's fun. So considering all of those factors, considering the fact that this has been a Steelers defense that has gotten absolutely work, considering the fact that this is a coaching staff with Mike Tomlin, Terrell Austin, and to a degree, you have to add Arthur Smith to the mix, but Arthur Smith, Aaron Rodgers, not like they got a lot to work with as it relates to the lack of depth at receiver, the terrible offensive line. Negative 34-point differential in the second half. That's where the Pittsburgh Steelers are at today. Minus 24 in the second half. In other words, they can't make adjustments. In other words, after the initial game plan, that's all we got. As much as I hate to say it, Colts win comfortably. This is a team, I've said this many times throughout the week, this is a team that has always had success against the Steelers in recent years with Shane Steichen. Whether it's in Indianapolis, in Pittsburgh, they always beat Pittsburgh. So I've got the Colts -3.5. Listen, as always, hope I'm wrong. Aaron Rodgers, you've done your job. I can't get on Aaron. Aaron's done his job. 31-20 is the final with the Colts over the Steelers. And I got to say, I will get on Aaron about this a little bit, and only time will tell. But if this thing goes south, if this ends up being 3 straight losses to the Steelers, and they go from 4-1 to you're at 500 with a 1-game lead in the division, those have always been the times that Aaron Rodgers' lack of leadership has come to fruition. It's been when things go well, Aaron's jolly, he's a happy old guy. And when it's not so much. Let's see. But I darn sure don't trust Mike Tomlin's defense whatsoever. All right, Falcons and Patriots, a rematch they've obviously played since then, but a rematch of Super Bowl 51, the greatest comeback in the history of the big game. And it's not the greatest comeback by points. That was the Bills over the Oilers back in, I think that was 1991, too. It was during the Bills' run of going to 4 straight Super Bowls. That's technically the greatest comeback. Super Bowl 51 is the greatest comeback. They were down 25 points late in the third quarter. That was the greatest comeback we've ever seen. The Patriots in this spot, though, many different characters from both sides, Atlanta and New England. Patriots are a 5.5-point favorite at home. Again, I made the promise to myself after the last 2 weeks, after I bet, air quotes, because I don't bet, that's what a segment's called, if I were a bet man. But I'm done betting the Atlanta Falcons this season. 2.5-point dogs, I took them to cover against San Francisco, a beat-up Niners team. They couldn't do that. And I took them as a 7.5-point favorite. I know Drake London and Michael Penix route, but still, against that Dolphins team that we just saw last night. They look good. Well, they look good against Atlanta. Took the Falcons -7.5, and they lost outright. It was a disaster. I'm done betting Atlanta. They're an enigma. They are a young team that quite simply is just not ready to win yet. Not the case with the Patriots. They've won 5 in a row, and if you take out the Week 1 game against the Vegas Raiders, Drake May's had a passer over 100 in every single game. Keyshawn Boutte's a legit number 2 receiver. Stephon Diggs, by and large, has been relatively productive. Shocker. They get the ball to Travion Henderson last week against the Cleveland Browns. Oh, he's pretty good. Almost like your star in the preseason, can be really productive for you. And so, New England at home. New England gets an inconsistent Falcons defense and Falcons team. Penix and Drake London are back. I don't think it's going to make a difference. Give me the New England Patriots -5.5 to win this one 28-20. Ironically, that was the score at one point in the game when Atlanta was up 28-20. This feels just mean to Falcons fans. I apologize. I'm going too far with the Super Bowl 51 analogies. Give me the Patriots, though. They win their 6th game in a row. They stay atop of the AFC East. They win 28-20 over the Atlanta Falcons. It is now time for my favorite segment of the week. It is simply called
Bettin Man.
If I were a Bettin Man, I'm looking good and hard at the Los Angeles Chargers in Nashville to take on the Tennessee Titans. LA is a 9.5-point favorite. Keep in mind for Tennessee, arguably the worst team in football. They're 1-7. They're terrible. They've already fired their coach. Cam Ward doesn't look the best. The O-line's awful. The defense. Calvin Ridley's out for the week. And Jeffrey Simmons is out for the week. So they're beat to hell on both sides of the ball. 2 of their 5 best players gone for this game against a Chargers team on extra rest, against a Chargers team that knows the Chiefs are rolling, knows that Denver is atop the division. They're trying to keep pace with the Broncos, a team they've already beaten this season. This is kind of a situation for the Chargers. It's like, hey, let's take care of business. Joe Alt's back. And if you saw that offense against a Brian Flores coach defense 2 Thursdays ago, that was impressive. 37 points. Herbert looked great. Like, maybe they found a little bit of a rhythm now that Joe Alt's back in line. Maybe he is, to this offense, what Trent Williams has been to the 49ers, where offensive line is, if Trent Williams in the lineup in his prime, it's unstoppable. Same with Joe Alt with the Los Angeles Chargers. So if I were a Batman, I love LA, to quote the Randy Newman song. -9.5 to win in blowout fashion over the Tennessee Titans. 34-14 in Nashville. The Titans' disastrous season continues. The Chargers continue to stay, not atop the AFC West, but continue to stay well within the race to win that division, well within the race to get a playoff spot in the AFC. If I were a Batman, Chargers -9.5, and I feel mighty good about that. All right, it is now time for Bryson's Bleak Bet. It's one game each and every week that I have absolutely zero confidence in predicting, but hey, you got to predict them all. And I sound like a broken record at this point because the Chicago Bears are featured, I feel like, every single week on the show on Bryson's Bleak Bet, but I do not know what to expect. It's too dang inconsistent. So the Bears are going on the road to Cincinnati. They're favored -2.5. Now, we are not sure if Joe Flacco is going to play. He's questionable this week. It could be a Jake Browning game, in which case I probably like the Bears a lot more. I'm going to assume Flacco plays. So if he does, Bengals offenses look pretty good with him. They scored 18 on Green Bay, but a lot of that was in the second half. They moved the ball. He's built a good rapport with Jamar Chase. They cooked the Steelers defense. Then again, freaking Justin Fields cooked the Steelers defense. That's not saying much. And then last week, put up 38 in the Jets. Hey, the offense did their job, but the problem is the Bengals defense is atrocious. So that atrocious Bengals defense against the Bears offense that just kind of leaves you scratching your head week after week. Because you see the talent. You see DeAndre Swift, who last week notwithstanding has been pretty darn good for them this season. You see Roma Dunze, who week after week looks like a true number one receiver in this league. And you got DJ Moore and Colson Loveland. The talent's there. O-line's great. And Caleb, gosh darn it, man, he has his moments. Outside the pocket, you see the playmaking ability that he became famous for at USC. The biggest issue that I have with Caleb's, I don't even know if it's a mechanics issue because I'm not qualified to comment on that, but just watching the games. Because Caleb's got a crazy great arm. He doesn't have good touch on the ball. Like if the guy's open down the field, I remember there was a play hit DJ Moore late in that game against Baltimore. DJ Moore's wide open, and he throws like a laser as opposed to a rainbow to DJ Moore. He doesn't put it on an arc, he puts it on a line. Again, to his receiver DJ Moore. That's you see that too often from Caleb. On deep balls, I'm just throwing it on a straight line. He can do it, but you make it easier on yourself if you kind of let your receiver go out and get it. Stafford has been amazing at that over the years. Prime Aaron Rodgers is great. That Herbert. These are the guys that have kind of perfected that. Dak Prescott. Caleb Williams has the ability to do that. He just hasn't grown into that to a degree. Here's the thing, too. Because if those that watch or listen to the show remember that I said back during August that the Caleb Williams-Ben Johnson partnership was not going to be a perfect marriage right off the bat. But around Halloween, well, this game is going to be played 2 days after Halloween. Around Halloween, as we get into November, it's going to start to click. Maybe this is an opportunity against the Cincinnati Bengals defense that is horrible. Maybe with no Joe Flacco, we'll see. It's going to be Jake Browning. Jake, Mr. I Love Interceptions Browning, in the spot. I got to admit, I kind of wince when I make this pick. But I kind of think it works out. This is probably my most confident Bryson Bleak bet of the year. Chicago Bears over the Cincinnati Bengals, 34. Yes, the Bears put up 34 because Cincinnati's defense is terrible and because, sticking to my prediction of Caleb and Ben Johnson, kind of figure it out at this point in the season, which was my preseason prediction. 34-24, Bears, minus 2.5. That's Bryce's Bleak bet. Again, I don't have a ton of confidence in predicting it, but again, you got to predict them all. All right. It is now time for a segment that was once the hottest segment in all of sports. Has now gone on a bit of a cold streak, but of course, I started 0-2, went in a 4-game winning streak. Now 0-2 again the last 2 weeks. So that can only mean we're about to go through a 4-week winning streak. So let's get right into it. It is now time for my upset of the week, and I love this one. Give me the New York Football Giants at home over the San Francisco 49ers, 24-17. Giants plus 2.5 and the outright W over the Niners. Giants plus 2.5 and the outright win. Here's why. The more film that the smart coaches in this league get on Mac Jones, the worse he looks. I know it was a cool Cinderella story. Right off the bat, he's playing well against the Saints. How good the Saints look today. And he's leading a game-winning drive against the Cardinals, who haven't won a game since. And then he has a big game on a Thursday night against the Rams. The offense is beat up. It's like, oh, Mac Jones looks like that guy that the Patriots hoped he'd be in 2021. I said, slow your roll. He's playing well. This is all Kyle Shanahan and, to a degree, Christian McCaffrey. This ain't Mac. Max makes some nice throws. He is. He doesn't move well. Arm strength isn't good. Doesn't command the offense. Not the best decision maker. Therefore, he's easy to game plan for. And week after week after week, wasn't very good against Tampa. Smart defensive coach. Wasn't good against Atlanta. A defensive coach in Raheem Morris. Was not good last week against the Texans. Smart defensive coach in D'Amico Ryans. It's not so much the defensive coaching staff with the Giants. It's more so that defensive line for the Giants. Brian Burns, Abdul Carter, Dexter Lawrence, right? Thibodeau, like dogs up front for the New York Football Giants. If them guys get after Mac Jones on a consistent basis, a guy who cannot move to save his life, ladies and gentlemen, as has been the case over the last month, that pumpkin, today's Halloween, that pumpkin is just going to keep turning. I phrased that wrong. I apologize. That carriage is going to continue to turn into that pumpkin. as we saw, of course, in the iconic Disney film Cinderella. That's what's been happening to Mac Jones over the last month. It will continue, and there's almost a sense for this Giants team of, after the devastating injury to Scadaboo last week, after the choke job against the Broncos, some of the bad calls that went against them in the Eagles game, they lost Scadaboo. Like, it's been a brutal 2-week stretch for the Giants. But there's a good vibe I like from this team. There's an aura of Jackson Dart that does remind me of a certain individual that he imitates each and every week.
This is where the fun begins.
And I think the fun will begin, or at least continue, for the Giants. Give me New York. Upset of the week. Giants D-line gets the job done. I can see a defensive touchdown for the Giants. New York over San Francisco, 24-17 in my upset of the week. Up next, you got the Denver Broncos on the road against the Houston Texans. Houston is favored -1.5. So Denver is on a 5-game winning streak. Their defense has been exceptional. The crazy comeback to beat Philly. The crazier comeback to beat the New York Giants. And then last week against a Dallas team that, I don't know, their offense had kind of been rolling. They held the Dallas offensive starters, the starters of Dallas, to 17 points. Dak turns the ball over twice. The first bad game Dak's had all season long. That's Denver. That's without Patrick Surtain, who unfortunately was put on IR because the Broncos pass rush is great with Benito and Zach Allen. They got some unbelievable players. Jonathan Cooper up front. But this is mano-a-mano. I guess not exactly mano-a-mano because it's not defense versus defense, but this is great defense versus even better defense because the Houston Texans, for their 3-4 record, for their offensive woes, have probably the best defense in all of football. It's fantastic. Derek Stingley Jr., you've got Henry To'oTo'o, you've got Danielle Hunter, you've got Will Anderson, you've got some amazing players on that side of the ball for Houston. And by the way, a great defensive coach in Miko Ryans. Is it possible? And I was not a believer in the Texans before the season because I didn't love the receiving core. I definitely didn't love their offensive line, and that could be a real issue for them against Denver. But last week against San Francisco is the best game that I've seen from CJ Stroud in years. I know this is only year 3 for him, but he's got the poise, the confidence, the deep balls working. Hey, I said it for the last few weeks. This Xavier Hutchinson kid is pretty good. He's a nice number 2 receiver. Once Nico Collins is back, like that's somebody that CJ Stroud's got a rapport with. He's got confidence in. That's huge for this Houston Texans team. And so Denver's kind of been living dangerously over the last month and a half. Should have lost to the Eagles, should have lost to the Giants. And by the way, those games were at home. Denver's not as productive on the road. So in this spot, believe it or not, I actually like the Texans to win. Kind of a low-ish scoring game, 23-17. A lot of, some turnovers in this game, defensive battle. The Houston beats Denver 23-17. They get to 500. Probably not within range to catch the Colts, but potentially as weak as the back half of the AFC is, maybe to put themselves in position for a playoff spot. They made it the last 2 years, so I think the Texans fans would be pleased with that. All right, it's now time for the second game on my favorite segment of the week. It is called
Bettin Man.
If I Were a Bettin Man. We're looking at a divisional matchup here. NFC North, Minnesota Vikings, Detroit Lions. Detroit is a 9.5-point favorite. Once again, back-to-back If I Were a Bettin Man, I'm taking the 9.5-point favorite. Here's why. There's certain bets, if you do bet, that are in recent years just kind of home runs. Just kind of a duh. Like when the game's over and you didn't bet it, like, gosh, I should have thought about this. Why didn't I take this? The Detroit Lions at home at Ford Field in the 1 o'clock window against an overmatched opponent. Now, Minnesota's 3-4. They're by no means a bad football team. They've got excellent individual players. Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Aaron Jones. The defense has been beat up. The offensive line has been beat up. JJ McCarthy's back. And again, I don't want to sound mean because I think McCarthy's a good kid. Like what I've seen from him in terms of his poise. I was impressed with that week 1 performance on Monday Night Football a month and a half ago against Chicago. But the fact of the matter is this for JJ McCarthy for the Minnesota Vikings. He was, to me, far and away, coming off of a great quarterback draft in 2024, far and away of the 6 quarterbacks drafted in the first round, far and away the least amount of upside did JJ McCarthy have. Against a Lions defense that, dare I say, maybe they found something. I mean, they did just hold the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense to 9 points without many players in their secondary, with Brian Branch suspended. Well, Brian Branch is back. Right? Aiden Hutchinson, kudos to him. Shout out to him for getting the bag. Got paid over the course of this past week. So he's locked in for the long term. He's looking to do some damage against this makeshift Minnesota Vikings offensive line. And J.J. McCarthy, as I've said over and over in the show, he's played 8 quarters. He's been bad for 7 of them. First 3 quarters against Chicago and the whole game against Atlanta. Now, that was 2 months ago. Is he rusty? The injury concerns. He's already got an injury history. So if I were a Bettin Man, I absolutely love it. Give me the Detroit Lions over the Minnesota Vikings, 33-19. They do cover the 9.5-point spread. Listen, I'm taking 2 big favorites to start here on If I Were a Bettin Man. So there you go. All right, moving on to the Carolina Panthers and the Green Bay Packers from Lambeau. Green Bay is a 12.5-point favorite at home for good reason. They've got the top seed in the NFC. The defensive line with Micah Parsons has been excellent. And Jordan Love, last week against my Steelers, played almost a perfect half. He completed 20 passes in a row, which tied Brett Favre for the Packers' single-game record. Right? They scored They went touchdown, field goal, and then they took knees on their last drive. So the Steelers, and some of this is the Steelers' defense, could not stop Green Bay. Romeo Dobbs has looked good. Right? They've got Christian Watson back in the lineup, which is huge for this team. He made some plays on Sunday night against Pittsburgh. Wait till they get Jaden Reed back. Tucker Kraft, by the way. Tucker Kraft, my gosh. National Tight End Day was awesome. But I'll say this. Bryce Young's back for Carolina. And Bryce Young, for what it's worth, certainly has not lived up to being the number 1 overall pick that he was in 2023. Led the Panthers to a 3-game winning streak. It's something. And I got to admit, and this time of year, this day in particular, in which costumes are a big thing, the Green Bay Packers uniforms on Sunday, I don't know if you've seen them. They're pretty awful. They are horrendous. And Deion Sanders said it best. When you look good and you feel good, you play good. And I don't think the Packers are going to play as well as people expect against Carolina. So 12.5, it's too many points. Give me Carolina plus 12.5. Green Bay wins outright. Green Bay's a better team. They're at Lambeau. They're not going to lose at Lambeau. Undefeated at home this year. They'll win 27-16. They'll maintain the top seed in the NFC. But again, kind of we just got this big emotional win against our former quarterback and Aaron Rodgers, and Jordan Love was great. And Carolina, who cares about them? Be careful. This has a trap game type of feel to it. But I will take the Packers to get the job done. So hang on just a second. All right. Moving on to the next game. What do we got next? Oh, Jaguars-Raiders. Shout out to my buddy Chris Mahi, who runs 89.5 The Edge, which is the radio station that my radio show is on each and every Monday and Friday. Check it out. Bryson Carver Show, 10 a.m. to noon Eastern on Mondays, and then noon to 2 Eastern on Fridays. Chris Mahi is a big Raiders fan. I hate to disappoint him because they're playing the Jaguars at home. And the Jaguars got some bad news and then some good news. So bad news is Travis Hunter's on IR. He suffered a knee injury yesterday at practice that scared a lot of people. According to MRI, the ACL is intact, which is fantastic news for Travis, for the Jags. Great news. Thank God he's not done for the season. It would have been awful. So he's going to be available at some point, we imagine, this season. The Jags are coming off a bye, and what has been my number 1 knock on Jacksonville is the guy who picked the Jags to win the AFC South this season. It's the fact that, for whatever reason, I can't figure it out, Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr. cannot get on the same page. Either Brian Thomas Jr. is dropping passes or Trevor's throwing him hospital balls. Maybe a combination of the two. Well, Travis Hunter's out. They're off a bye. They're going against a terrible Raiders defense. Doesn't this feel like the opportunity to get Brian Thomas Jr. involved? I think it is. Give me. We have it here? I think we have it. Maybe, maybe not. Hang on. We'll see. Oh, let's see. We're a little bit of a delay. I think we got the Jags graphic in here somewhere. Okay, here it is. Give me the Jacksonville Jaguars over the Las Vegas Raiders, 26-21. They do cover, minus 2.5. Again, the Raiders are just a bad football team. Both teams are coming off a bye, and you could say, well, Pete Carroll's accomplished more as a coach than Liam Cohen. Yeah, no question. No, duh. But today's modern offensive era, I think that's I think that favors the Jags. Sorry, we're confirming a pizza order to enjoy this Halloween night. All right, who we got next? Saints and Rams. I almost put this one in if I were a Bettin Man, but the line is a little too big. I know I've taken 2 9.5-point spreads. It would feel kind of consistent to go with another big spread. I can't do it in this instance only because it is a gigantic line. New Orleans Saints, who I have said from the beginning of the season, I thought they'd be the worst team in football. I thought they'd win 2 games against the Los Angeles Rams, who are a Super Bowl contender in the NFC. Rams this game are a 14.5-point favorite. Are the Saints awful? Yes. Spencer Rattler awful? Yes. Well, Spencer Rattler's not starting this game. It's going to be Tyler Shoke. Longtime college football starter. Last play at Louisville. Mid-round pick by the New Orleans Saints. I don't imagine they thought he would be their future franchise quarterback. This felt like kind of a situation where draft the kid. We're going to play him, see what he's got. If he's not good, we're not good. We're going to have a top pick in the 2026 class, which has a number of really young, talented quarterbacks. I'm going with the Rams to win and cover. They're favored by 14.5. I have them winning by 16, 31, 15. But this has a really suspicious backdoor cover type of feel to it. Where like the Rams go up big. They're up like 31-0. And then the Saints are in position where maybe they get a field goal, they get a touchdown. And then if you bet the Rams minus 14.5, you're sweating that last drive. Maybe New Orleans scores. No Puka Nacua, that's a little bit concerning, but Stafford and Devontae have built a good rapport. This is a game that they should win and win quite easily, I might add. Give me the Rams 31-15. All right, it is now time for the final game for my favorite segment of all time. It is called
Bettin Man.
If I Were a Bettin Man. Woo! Biggest game of the week. Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills from Highmark Stadium. Last season at Highmark Stadium in Buffalo, the Chiefs are a 1.5-point road favorite. So for Buffalo, or even for both teams, let's keep it real. We talk about, Mahomes, Allen, excuse me, all the matches we've seen between those two. And the fact of the matter is, this is a big game for both teams within the division. The Bills are not first in their division. The Chiefs are not first in theirs. Chiefs are trying to keep pace. They're definitely going to run down the Chargers. Come on. But they're trying to run down Denver. And as for the Buffalo Bills, the Patriots are one of the hottest teams in football. Can we run down New England? We've already lost them at home this year. We still got to play in Foxborough later. We got to run down New England. Now we got to face Kansas City. Given the fact that New England's schedule is arguably the easiest in football down the stretch, it's concerning. What's also concerning for Buffalo is their defense is trash. It's bad. It's bottom in terms of rush yards per game, which can Kansas City expose that? I'm not sure. Isaiah Pacheco is out. Pacheco kind of built a little bit of a rhythm. Kansas City has run the ball better as of late, but it's certainly not a strength of their team. Here's what I know. The Kansas City Chiefs offense have yet to score under 28 since Xavier Worthy came back from injury back in week 4. From that point on, they've scored 37, 31, 30, 31, and then last week scored 28. By the way, playing their C-plus game against the Washington Commanders. Patrick Mahomes is playing MVP football. It's funny, Mahomes got 4 picks in the year. 2 of them are on Travis Kelce. Drops, so he really should just have 2. Against that Buffalo secondary, could get ugly quickly. Josh Allen's going to have to play hero ball. He's going to have to be Superman for this Buffalo Bills team. If we can pull up the graphic, here it is. If I were a bet man, love Kansas City. Against that Buffalo defense, yeah, minus 1.5, 38-28. As Patrick Mahomes reminds everybody, this ain't no rivalry. This isn't a playoff game, but I'm 4-0 in the postseason against Josh Allen. One of those games coming in Josh Allen's house. Chiefs win 38-28. And final game, I didn't know what to do with this one. Seattle Seahawks and Washington Commanders, Sunday Night Football. Seattle's a 2.5-point favorite on the road. So the Seahawks are coming off a bye, which well-coached teams off a bye, you tend to like them in those spots. Going to Washington, a team that is in desperate need of a win. Jaden Daniels, great news for the Commanders. Jaden Daniels is back. Bad news is their defense is atrocious. They've not been good this year. They were awful last year. The secondary's been beat up. Marshawn Lattimore finally looks like the old Marshawn Lattimore when he made a big-time play on the first Mahomes interception on Monday Night Football. So that's something. I will say the fact that Washington gets 1 less day to prepare while the Seahawks get 2 weeks to prepare feels a little bit unfair to the Commanders. At least the game is at home. I don't think Jaden Daniels has ever lost on Sunday Night Football at home. So that's kind of a big opportunity for him to reestablish himself. Hey, y'all been talking about Drake May, right? Bo Nix has had his moments. I'm still, again, in Jaden Daniels' mind, the best quarterback from the 2024 class. I am the guy that took Washington from, 4 wins to the NFC Championship game in year 1? There's a desperation factor. There's the factor of Seattle did not play that well against Houston at home, mind you, 2 Monday nights ago. If Houston had an offense, a functional offense, which they looked like they did against the 49ers, they would have won that game with Seattle's 4 turnovers. It'll be a high-scoring game. But I believe in Jaden Daniels, especially in the clutch. Give me the Commanders. 27-24 in a close game. Washington plus 2.5 over the Seattle Seahawks. This is a must-win for the Commanders. They cannot start 3-6 and make the playoffs in a stacked NFC. especially as bad as Dallas's defense is, that they can't be in a position where they're down to the Cowboys in the standings at this point in the season. Washington wins a must-win game over Seattle, 27-24 in Week 9. And again, I'll predict, obviously, Cowboys and Cardinals. I'm not sure if Kyler's playing in that game, which will, I'll admit, partially affect my prediction because Kyler has never lost at AT&T Stadium. So we'll see how that plays itself out. All right, that is the end of today's show. You know what? Might as well do the closing with the Boba Fett helmet on. For some reason, I just can never get on straight, okay? Does that work? There we go. That is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on this freaking helmet. Catch Carving Up Live on Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, as well as any and everywhere that you get your favorite podcast. Also, check out the Saturday Morning Tailgate tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific time, live on the Grid Network. Myself, Tim Barnard, Arthur Hurst will be joining us about midway through the show. He's got some other commitments, but we'll be excited to welcome Arthur back in the mix. Myself, Tim, and Arthur will break down our top 25s. We'll do college football playoff predictions, or not college football playoff predictions, but college football predictions for the week. Talk about LSU firing Brian Kelly and firing their athletic director. Very exciting. I'm sure I'm not gonna lie. I can't take myself seriously wearing this helmet, but it's All Hallows Eve. It's Halloween. Enjoy yourself. Eat candy. Watch horror movies. Have a jolly old time, especially on a Friday night. See you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody. God bless y'all. Peace out. I can't wait to return to Batu, I must say. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.